All right. Good evening, afternoon, or morning, whenever you're watching this. So, my name is Josh Hamilton, and I am the OI coach at Grapevine High School. And I'm going to walk you through a quick demo on how to judge individual events, specifically the speaking events and the interpretation events. So, if you've been asked to judge, congratulations. It's actually a really cool experience. So, don't feel super overwhelmed because I'm going to walk you through just some of the basics that you need to know and show you some examples of a ballot. So, the first thing you're going to want to know is that you'll get a master ballot. So, it's not going to look exactly like this, but very, very similar. Okay. So, when you're looking at the master ballot, at the top, you're going to see like the event and the section and the round, all of that will be filled in for you. Don't necessarily have to worry about that. And you'll see a room number that's going to tell you where to go. Now, when your students get into the room, they will automatically, without you telling them to, I promise, start going to the dry erase board and writing their name and their piece on the board in the order that they're going to speak. So this middle section right here isn't necessarily going to look on your ballots this weekend like this, but it's going to be the similar structure. So it's going to tell you speaker 1 through 8. It'll already have their name next to it, and if there's an X and an E next to it, that just means the speaker is cross-entered in another event. So that might mean they come to your room first, and then they might ask to leave and come back to perform for you, or they may go first and then ask to be excused. This is totally normal, happens all the time. So if there's an X and an E next to their name, that just means they're either going to come in or out of the room as they need to. So the most important things that are going to happen on here, in this middle section where it says speaker name, that's really on your ballot this weekend going to be the title of the piece. So if I was performing Twisted by Lori Halls Anderson, my name would be speaker 1, Josh Hamilton. You would write Twisted by Lori Halls Anderson right here. The time, and we'll talk about time in a minute, and then the rank when the round is done. You'd sign your name down here, and then you're going to circle that time signals were given or they were not. Talking about time signals, in almost every event with the exception of poetry and prose, so every event except poetry and prose, the time is 8 to 10 minutes with a 30-second grace. Most students are going to ask for 3 down, fist at grace, which means at 7 minutes, you'll hold up 3 fingers. At 8, 2, 9, 1, and then put up a fist at 10 minutes. Whatever their time is, you'll write that right here. When the round is over, you will rank them on this sheet and on the individual ballot, which we're about to get to. So let's talk about individual ballots. So I'm going to show you first an event called extemporaneous speaking. So your ballots will look like this. So you'll put the contestant's name. The most important thing right here is their school code, and that will be on the master ballot, right? So if we go back to our master ballot, you'll see that their code will be on there. Please, please, please make sure that that code is entered right here, okay? The round, so if it's round 1 or 2, the section, which again will be on the master ballot, and what speaker number they are. So this is an example of an extemporaneous speaking ballot. This will look the same way for domestic extemporaneous speaking. And if you notice right here on the left, on every ballot you get all weekend, it's going to have some questions that you can work off of, right? So like a frame of reference for what you should be looking for. So if you're looking at this particular one about extemporaneous speaking, this is an event where they'll draw a topic on a current event. They'll have 30 minutes to prepare their speech, and then 5 to 7 minutes with a 30-second grace to deliver that speech. So you're looking for some basic structure. Is there an introduction? Do they have 3 points and a conclusion? Do they have supporting materials, right? So does the speaker give citations? For instance, I might say, Mother Jones reported on September 2nd of 2018, or I might say Reuters states on September 1st, 2018. You're listening for citations to where they gathered their evidence. Did they analyze the topic, right? So if their topic is about the U.S.'s latest trade deal with Mexico, and they're talking about Brazil, they're probably not analyzing the topic necessarily unless Brazil, and I'm not up to date apparently, has like a large stake in this trade agreement. I don't think they do, but again, you'll know based on like the content and the analysis that they're giving. In here, this will talk about the introduction. So does it get your attention? Do you feel like it connects to the speech? Is it an organized speech, right? Does it flow? Does it make sense? Are you getting it? Was the language really communicative, or did it seem really overly rehearsed and kind of robotic, right? And were there errors, right? Just basic public speaking errors. Were there a lot of uhs and ums and stumbles and that sort of thing, or did it just flow really pretty and smooth, etc.? Okay, so when you're writing out a ballot, you can answer these questions, and you can also put anything else that like catches your fancy, right? So you're going to see in extemporaneous speaking that students will move, like physically move from point to point, right? So from my first point, I walk into my second point. And if that looks really rigid and unnatural, or they take up a lot of space or no space, you can comment things like that. If they're overusing hand gestures or not giving you eye contact, by all means, write something about that. So these are just little things in any of the public speaking events that you can add. So this is foreign extemporaneous. Same thing would happen in domestic, right? Same kind of ballot, same thing, just domestic speaking. They're talking about domestic issues, so specific to the U.S. In original oratory, similar in terms of like speaking structure, but in this one, they get to choose the topic, and they're preparing the entire speech about a topic of their choice. So you're going to look at like, first, does the speaker analyze the topic, and is it worthwhile and fresh, or is this something you've heard about a million times and they're not bringing anything really new to the table? Again, is it interesting? Are they grabbing your attention? Are the ideas carefully selected and structured? Do they enunciate? Was the language usage better than average? Was the style appropriate for the topic, right? So if they have this really deep, serious, heavy topic and they make jokes for 6 minutes, that's kind of weird. Maybe you don't want to evaluate that well. So again, that's kind of your call as the judge in the room. So in talking about some of the interpretation events, so I'll start with humorous. Again, same structure at the top. Printed name, school code, round section, speaker number. Where it says topic, that's just the title of the piece. So again, using my example from earlier, I might do Twisted by Laurie Halse Anderson. You'd write that in right there. So here in HI, you're going to see a lot of different types of questions, right? So is the selection age appropriate? In their introduction, do they state the title and author? Do you get an understanding of what the piece is going to be about? Does the speaker set the mood? Is it clear what the theme is? Is there a theme? Is there a clear plot line? You're going to see a lot of characters in HI. Do they distinguish each character both physically and vocally? Can you hear them? Bodily action, right? Is the speaker poised? Does it make sense what they're doing? Unmotivated movement's a huge one, right? Are they motivating each movement, or are they just slop haphazardly moving around? So this is HI. So it should be humorous in nature. On the opposite of that is dramatic. Could be dramatic in nature. Same kind of thing. Here, though, you're really looking to, on the DI side, you're not going to see a bunch of characters, but rather you're looking probably more at insight and understanding and internalizations and characterization. So do you believe that they are the character? Do you feel that pain or that drama or that tragedy with them? If not, you can tell them, go further with this. Keep exploring the character. How would this make you feel? Those types of things. And then finally, duo and duet. The only difference in duo and duet is in duet acting, they can touch and they can use two chairs as props. In duo, they do not touch and cannot make eye contact. Both duo and duet are partner events. Let's start with duo. Same structure at the top. If you notice right here, does the material have literary merit? Is it appropriate? Again, you will see an introduction. So is it relevant? Does it tell you what the piece is going to be about? Do they establish believable characters? Are they consistent with the mood? Can you understand them? Voice and diction, right? Is the scene shared equally, or does one person really overact or outact the other person? Are they using the movements well? So remember in duo, they can't touch and they can't make eye contact. So it might look a little silly to you in the beginning, but that's all part of the events to see how they use their space and block that out. Whereas in duet, they can touch, they can make eye contact, and they also can use two chairs as props. So same kind of thing, but when you look at movement and strategy, how are they blocking it, right? Are they showing you like different levels with the chairs? Are they doing anything with them? Are they touching? Are they not? Are they looking at each other? How are they interacting in the space? So the only other thing I'll point out here is POI, because some people get this a little confused. That's totally okay. It's a relatively new event. So in POI, you kind of see the same thing happening, but what you'll notice in POI is it's one person performing, and they're using multiple genres of literature, so play scripts, prose, news articles, poetry, and they need to create a theme, right? So in the theme, is the title and author clearly stated with all the different ones? Are there at least 2 of the 3 genres? Did the literature contribute to the theme or the argument? So they should be either talking about a theme, so like cancer is a theme, so it's different cancer stories, or an argument. So let's say we wanted to make an argument, and the argument was for young men, older men to step up and be role models for young men. That's an argument, that we need more male role models. So they're presenting that argument with these characters throughout. They can move, and they can use their black book also as a prop. So are they doing things with it? Does it make sense? Is it motivated as to why they're moving? So let me show you an example of 2 ballots. Not that, that's my teaching for diversity. Ignore that. Okay, so I have an example of 2 ballots. Okay, so this ballot here on the left is obviously not something we want to see. So what you see is like just pluses. Like I can infer a few things from that, but it's not helpful in terms of going back to coach a student, right? So if I just have pluses or minuses, that's not really going to help a student grow or understand like what they could do better. So rather, we're looking at a ballot like this. So this is a ballot one of my kids received last weekend. I'm sure this judge would not mind because she gives us a great feedback and I genuinely appreciate it. So the first thing she says, try not to let the sound trail off at the end of your phrases and sentences. Work on articulating so we hear all the details of the story. This happens a lot, especially in interp. Once people get moving, they'll go, so last week I was going to the mall. You were going where? Like, finish the sentence, right? So if you hear them trailing off, that's a good note. This is a prose ballot. It says, you seem to be very reliant on your book. I suggest increasing your familiarity so you can show more visualizations and feeling. This just means the reader, the performer is like reading really heavily from that black book, and it's taking away from like the eye contact and the facial expressions and the emotions. This is about speaking pattern, right? So can you predict how they're going to tell the next line? If it's in a pattern, that's really not what we're looking for because that's not how we tell stories in real life, right? I also like this down here. Is there a way you can splice the dream? So this is specific to the piece, right? And then down here, I suggest keeping your hands on the book unless you're gesturing. Totally makes sense, because if we're just like throwing our hands around all willy-nilly, that can be super distracting, so there should be some sort of purpose for why you're doing it. Okay, so going back real quick, that's a quick overview. One of the things I just want to remind you of is when you get this master ballot, make sure that you put the speaker's title here in the middle and their rank. Notice on the ballots that there it is again, teaching diversity. If you guys want to read that article, I can send it to you. Notice on the ballot, okay, well, I'll go back to this. Notice on the ballot down here that you need to circle a rank, print your name, sign it, and where you're from, and make sure that the ranks on here on this master ballot match up with the one on the individual ballots. Above all, remember this is a subjective activity, so however you rank them is how you rank them. Don't feel bad about it as long as you're giving good feedback. Make sure you have a good time, and we are so thankful that you chose to join us at the